my bathroom's next.
Well, I have to talk to you because the last time we were talking, like, you had all these houses you were building and stuff.
This bathroom's, I need a bathroom
I
redone.
need to get on your list.
My shower has not worked in 3 months. I'm showering in the basement.
Mine is just, it's not an emergency, but you know, Scott doesn't trust anyone but you, so.
That's what we said.
I know a kid, and I actually gave his mom your name or your email, and he's kind of like Jed a couple years ago, right? Like he's a freshman, he's Colin's age, but he's construction manager. I think you could pay him on. So if you need someone, I think he would be a good worker, nice kid, he played tennis with Colin, different CrossFit. I think you could do to him what you did to Jed. How's that? Well, except for the slicing open of the legs. I'll send him your way. Okay.
I'll talk to you soon, Sam.
All right. Let me know when y'all are ready.
I'm ready.
Sam Morocco.
So I'm going to speak.
Same. I've got both my daughters and one of my stepsons, his wife, and my 2 grandchildren at home. And like, I would like to not.
If you wish. I think we're good. Okay.
It can be as
Okay. Are we ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Everybody ready? All right, good evening. We'd like to call the meeting to order, and we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mrs. McLean, may I have a roll call, please? Here.
Here. Here. Here.
Mr. Heyer. Mr. Need.
Here.
Mrs. Horst. Oh, here. Sorry about that. Yeah, thank you. I'm here. Mr. Heyer regrets he's unable to be with us tonight. He is traveling on business for the Michigan Association of School Boards, representing us and other boards across the state. Could not be with us physically, and asked me to share that our current state rules, archaic as they may be, do not allow for remote participation. So he sends his apologies. This meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community hearing. There is time for public participation during the meeting as indicated in agenda items 3 and 9. Item 2 is approval of the consent agenda. May I have a motion, please?
I move to support the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Item 3 is citizens' request to address the board. You were given 2 opportunities to address the board. Under item 3.1, you can request to address the board about any topic that's on tonight's agenda. And under item 9, you are welcome to address the board on any topic. When making comments, please state your name and address and direct your comments to Kelly Horst, board president. Each person may speak for up to 2 minutes. Per established procedures, the board will not respond to questions or interact with the speaker during public comment. Mrs. McLean is going to bring me the sign-up sheet for public comment, but there will be another sign-up sheet that will remain over there throughout the meeting for anyone who wishes to sign up to address the board at item 9. Okay, so right now I have 2 citizens who wish to address us when we get to the agenda item for Clarkston Family Farm, and 1 who will go under item 9. And again, if anyone else wants to sign up during the course of the meeting, the sign-up sheet is over there. And please remember that we do limit our speakers to those who follow the correct procedures, so please fill up the sign-up sheet in its entirety. And just as a reminder, since we have so many new people in attendance tonight, first, welcome. It's nice to see a crowd, but please let me remind you that calling out individuals in this forum is inappropriate. Personal attacks are not tolerated, and anyone who engages in criticism or a personal attack, whether it's by name or any other means of identification, will be prevented from doing so. So please keep your remarks and your attention when you're at the podium directed to the board. Item 4 is our superintendent update, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Ryan.
Thanks, President Hurst. First of all, I just want to look out of the crowd tonight and say welcome. Thank you for being here today, being involved in one of the smallest but most important forms of democracy in the United States, and being present this evening. I'd like to definitely welcome those who contacted me beforehand that are here with the Clarkson Family Farm and here to represent and to be able to show support. I appreciate you being here this evening. And it's my honor to give a couple updates of what some of the exciting things going on in our school district right now. And tonight, for those of you who don't come in attendance, you know there's a wide range of different type of student activities that we try to bring attention to. A lot of times they involve athletics or the arts. Tonight, both of the ones that I really wanted to highlight are involved in the academic area. And I was really, really pleased and proud, if you guys are not aware of what Team Rush is in Clarkston. It's our robotics team, and from year to year they're highly competitive. They go around the country competing, and they bring a lot of honor and a lot of prestige to Clarkston for their efforts. And when you live in a town like Clarkston, it's right in the backyard of the big three and a lot of the engineering firms. It's not hard to imagine why it's such a passion project for so many of our kids. But this year, particularly since I've been here, Team Rush is just conquering right now out there across Michigan and ready to go across literally to take on the world. And just to make sure I had my notes, I wanted you to hear that CHS's Team Rush finished as a regional winner and received an Excellence in Engineering Award, which celebrates the team that demonstrates a professional approach to the design process and whose design is elegant and advantageous on the field of play. Student Allison Schell was selected to advance to the states for the Dean's List Award, and Team Rush is ranked 2nd in the state and 10th in the nation. 10th in the nation. Yep. I really want to give a shout out to Kyle Hughes and the entire coaching staff. They are now getting ready to head to the state championship this Wednesday, April 13th at Saginaw Valley University, and then on to the World Championships beginning on April 18th in Houston, Texas. So if you guys know anything about, you see the activities and all the hard work and training of our sports teams on the field, it seems like they're constantly year-round. Kyle Hughes and her team at the high school literally go any Friday night that you go to a basketball game, or you're on a fall night at a football in one of those crisp fall evenings, go and look at the back of the high school parked right outside the technology area, and you're going to see a string of cars. These students and their team literally work into the night practically 7 days a week to go after this. And I can't say enough about Kyle, the entire coaching staff, and all the students involved. I'm really, really proud of them, and I'm going to wish them the best, as I know you will, as they go into the state and national competition. The second one I want to do due diligence to share is involving our construction tech program. And it's another passion project of mine because I feel like really the future of Clarkston, of Michigan, and of the United States is not only deeply rooted in students that are off to colleges and onto the military, but the trades is such an incredible area that we need investment in right now. You don't have to go any farther than seeing if you've tried to contract to have any work done on your home to see how difficult it is right now to find good people. And Clarkston has a program that we literally outpace the county in their programming right here in Clarkston. And I don't know if you know that, but one of the chief architects, engineers, and workhorses, Mr. Steve Wyckoff, is actually sitting in the second row. If you could give everybody a wave. Has done an amazing job shepherding this program over the last several years from something that was really just in the ashes of what we formerly knew as shop classes, and has kind of have risen it to the level of building homes again. And if you go behind the junior high, you can actually see one they're building in pieces, and they are rip-roaring ready to go to get out there in the neighborhoods, kind of like the days of old of building, houses in our community and restoring ones that either are historical significance or ones that we want to see, as possible residents to just increase our overall community. And specifically, in addition to Steve, I'd like to recognize and congratulate CHS senior Joe Smothers, who won the Carpentry State Championship this past weekend in Grand Rapids. Okay, the Carpentry Championship right here in Clarkston. The competition included print, reading, building codes, and hands-on skills in rough and roof framing, as well as stairs and green building practices. Please correct me, Mr. Wyckoff, if I get any of this wrong. Joe's exemplary performance has won him the honor of representing the state of Michigan at the National Skills Leadership Conference in Atlanta, Georgia this summer. The Clarkston construction program has also had state finalists in carpentry team building competitions with students Scott Dobson, Evan Savoy, Sawyer Petrella, and Brendan Verbicki. So what an incredible program, and for those kids who brought this type of recognition back to Clarkston. So those are my two big updates. I have one I want to include into the family farm, but I'm going to let that kind of go on to a little bit later in the agenda for this evening. So again, thank you for indulging me and hearing some of the great things going on in Clarkston. Thank you, President Horace.
Thank you, Dr. Ryan. That is the best kind of update. Appreciate that very much. Item 5 is presentation items. We have none tonight. Item 6 is action items. We do have a few of those on deck. We'll move on to 6.1, approval of personnel changes. May I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Education approves the personnel changes as listed.
Support. Are there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Item 6.2 is approval of motion to explore additional school resource officer. May I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Education approves the motion to explore an additional school resource officer for the district beginning in the 2022-23 school year.
Support.
Any questions or discussion from the board, or Dr. Ryan, do you want to give a brief?
Just super brief, as related to overall review of our security protocols, procedures, and our facilities that we have done during the school year, and we've reported back in February to the community. I feel like this is a step that kind of solidifies our personnel support and our cooperative effort with Independence Township and also Oakland County Sheriff's Office. We're looking at that notion of adding a third liaison. Currently, we have two. They're stationed at Clarkston High School and then primarily between the junior high, the middle school, and the elementaries. And based on my own research and comfort in working with the Sheriff's Office, I'd very much like to be able to report back to our community that we have a full-time officer that never leaves the high school, a full-time officer that never leaves the junior high for those age brackets that I feel a lot more secure in for my own children, for every child in this community. And then a third liaison I believe that we can have between the middle school and working with our elementaries. I think the coordination and support, it's not simply guard duty, but it's really the integration of police, community, and our schools. They do a lot of supports in terms of overall wellness and healthy habits and everything from internet safety to you name it in terms of making sure that our kids are supported in schools. So we have an incredible relationship with the Oakland County Sheriff's Office, and we think now, based on their support, would be a combined effort between both the township and Clarkston schools to make this happen, would be a great effort.
Other questions or comments from the board? Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Item 6.3 is approval of the Clarkston Family Farm lease extension. May I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Education approves the lease extension for the Clarkston Family Farm as presented.
Support.
Dr. Ryan?
Thank you, President Horace. Well, myself and Mr. Goodman, I'll invite him to kind of come up to the podium as well, have been working with Chelsea and the Family Farm to do an extension on the current lease of which we've had in practice over the last 5 years as a cooperative effort. Chelsea has done an amazing job in terms of building the capacity of the program, and Clarkston Schools has been very much the benefit, as has our community. For our audience this evening, you have to understand a little deeper in what the Family Farm means to us. It literally is an opportunity for a vast majority of our elementary students to be able to participate in a field trip in Clarkston to get a certain aspect of nature, growing things from the earth, and looking at kind of a well-rounded how you can have an integration of our environment within sciences, within social sciences, and see how it all kind of fits together and plays out right here in our community. That extends not only during the regular school year, but we managed to expand programs for summer that we've done in Clarkston, and we've also managed to have a very vibrant program with our special needs students being able to be engaged at the farm as well. This has been a project over the 5 years. It wasn't an instant on, It's won through the support of this Board of Education over the years, cooperative effort with Mr. Goodman's department and our facilities, and working with Chelsea to kind of build capacity in a smart, thoughtful way over a period of years to make sure that it worked well, and it was kind of seamless. We've looked at similar programs. You should know across the state of Michigan, there's many school districts that have programs similar. I want to say many. There's a handful in reality. 5? Okay, there's a handful. That have had these type of efforts within their communities. The difference is, in general, it's 100% brought by the school district in terms of property that they own, and it's run basically directly as a classroom extension. In my mind, and with our Board of Education support, it's really expanded to this as really a sense not only of the school district, but of the Clarkson community. And I think that's the element that Chelsea has brought on board. I don't know how she does in terms of her tireless effort and passion, and how many emails that I've received to her that always end with, "I dig it." And it's, I believe, a play on the idea that you're working in soil. Is that correct? Kind of tongue-in-cheek, but in all reality, it does provide, an opportunity that we haven't had. And with Chelsea and her team working on it through the family farm, it comes from a different perspective than just being another school district program. By adding that community element and having events and having ways to engage the broader community outside the schools, I think not only strengthens the family farm and its vision, but also makes it more of a partner to Clarkson schools than just part. And I can't say enough of how proud I have been of the program, and I know I speak for our Board of Education and their support over the last years, to really now say we've done this project for 5 years, and now it's time to take it to another level. And it's the recommendation of our administration and board that we look for a longer-term partnership with Chelsea and the family farm, and I'm recommending a 10-year spot, and it's within the contract that we would like to open with and seal with Chelsea and the family farm, to really be able to secure some longer range grant investments at every level that look for that stability within the program, and look for long-term investment. If it's going to be made, that it's going to be sustained. I want to say publicly, and in all the conversations I had with our board members, we're completely committed to continue to move forward and expand these opportunities for all the kids. And I expanded even past Clarkson schools. Really in talking to Chelsea and the team's vision, we really want to have this invitation for all schools in the Clarkson area. Whether they're parochial, private, online, or however they come, we want to give them these type of experiences to put their hands in the dirt and to see a different way. So I have nothing but appreciation so far of what we built, and I feel like, when I spoke to my subject area coordinators, both in science and social studies, and how excited they were of looking at some of the long-term prospects, we really think that, the school district investing in Chelsea in a very open way here in a public board meeting to say, we kind of look to want to support that in terms of rent support, or the lack of really just inviting her to be in this space to kind of expand these opportunities, while also helping service a vast majority of the Clarkson students over the years so far and into the years in the future. And we think this is one of the rare circumstances in where community and schools come together. Like I just spoke of the last agenda item of schools and the township and the county services coming together. Any time you get that type of synergy of operations and synergy of support and synergy just of idea, it just feels good when you're out there. And it feels good to be part of something that the community as a whole is involved in. I think is going to be a good thing. As somebody that's very interested in community building, this is something I think that we would be at a miss, not only to not invest in, but not to have a sense of appreciation for what we have here in Clarkston. And I know, again, that I speak for our Board of Education, who has been absolutely amazing in trying to continue these opportunities forward. And I'd invite Mr. Goodman if there's anything from the operational side. I know I can be kind of long-winded sometimes, so I apologize to the crowd this evening, but if there's anything you'd like to add on, and then I'd invite any comments and questions from our Board of Education before we vote.
Am I on here? You said a lot, what I would, so I don't want to repeat it all.
I apologize.
I think 7 years ago I met Chelsea, and she had this plan, and I was, I given her every hole. I think that, are you sure? And amazingly enough, her energy and her excitement Now 5 years in, well, 7 years since we met, 5 years since their first lease is now up, and yeah, it's been excellent. If you haven't been out there, I know this group has all been out there, but if you haven't and you're listening, it's amazing. And it's nice to see the property being used the way it's being used as a farm, and so a real big kudos to her and her team, and really appreciate that. So I agree with the recommendation tonight. We've been working with our legal counsel as well as Clarkston Family Farm. And the agreement that you have in front of you is for a 10-year lease. Again, like Sean said, that helps them apply for different grants that shows a longer-term investment in the property they're at. So here to answer any questions you may have on that lease, but thank you.
Trustees? Mr. Need?
Thank you, President Horst. Shortly after I joined the board, probably about 7 years ago, I got a telephone call one night from my good friend and neighbor, Chelsea O'Brien, who wanted to talk to me about an idea she had. And so she came over and we sat across my kitchen table, and she had this incredibly enthusiastic and energetic proposal for the Clarkston Family Farm. And it sounded great. And you never know what's going to result from those efforts, but this has far exceeded even what I thought was going to happen, knowing how energetic and enthusiastic Chelsea is. For those of you that don't know, Clarkston Community Schools bought the property when we built Independence Elementary, and the Bayless Farm was there, but it was really a building that we didn't have a lot of use for. And a building that Mr. Goodman can, I'm sure, concur, cost us something to maintain. So this is the, I think, ideal, and Dr. Ryan said it best, it's a partnership. It's a win-win partnership that not only gives us benefits, great community benefits. Anybody that's seen Clarkston Family Farm social media knows that there are just numerous community events, and Wendy and I have been to many. But it's also got a huge educational component for all of our kids as well, at all grade levels, at all levels of attainment, and that's critical for a school district. So my hat's off to Chelsea and the entire farm operation, and I wholeheartedly support the motion.
Thank you. Mrs. Green?
Adding on to what Mr. Need said, when I first met Chelsea, it was about 6 years ago, and we were working on another project for Clarkston Schools, and we would work many, many hours, and Brad, I think you were there. And first of all, even before she talked to me about this farm idea she had, her enthusiasm and energy is just palpable. She just exudes it every room she walks into. So we're working on this bond campaign, and every once in a while she'd just throw out this idea she had. And then we were talking about, where are we going to hold this opening party? She said, oh, I know where we have to hold it. We have to. She didn't give anyone else a chance to even think about another place. And so we went out to the Bayless Farm, and at the time, it was nothing. I mean, we threw up a tent. It was a dilapidated old house. And I remember walking on there and setting up for this party and thinking, I don't know if this can happen. I mean, this is a huge undertaking, and even Chelsea, I just don't know, and I would love to see it. It is everything that I believe in and don't have the energy for, and I am so grateful that you do, because it gives our kids and our community time to unplug, turn off their phones, dig in the dirt, learn things, and be part of this community collaboration. And so I just want to publicly say thank you. Thank you to everybody who came to support. I think it is one of the most important things that we can support here. So I also wholeheartedly support it.
Great. Ms.
Thank you,
McGinnis?
Madam President. Well, I don't think there's a word for Chelsea myself, personally. Her enthusiasm for this community and what she's willing to do for this community is leaps and bounds above any expectation any person could have for any one individual. And I think actually there's about 5 individuals inside of her working and thinking all day long. One of the things that I personally really like about the farm is the opportunity for students, or children really. These aren't even students that I'm talking about, because my grandchildren are children still. The opportunity for young children to learn and touch and feel hands-on what science really feels like on a day-to-day basis. My grandson raises butterflies every summer. They're on my back porch. I have butterfly cages, about 6 of them, and he's even talked to the Crack brothers. I'm not sure if I said that right, because they don't know what butterflies really live in, and it's not cocoons. So my grandchildren have learned a lot from the farm. They enjoy going all the time, and I can't say enough for the energy and the vision that you brought to this farm for our community, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Mrs. Egan.
I just will not reiterate what's been said. I will just mention that I see a lot of members from the Clarkston Farm and Garden Club here. I see Bittersweet Farms here. Some old friends, master gardeners. This is truly, and even landscapers here. I mean, people that I've met through the years that really, this farm it's just a great example of who we are here in Clarkston. And I just can't imagine that us not having this beautiful site. And I also have to say, I think this is just a great legacy for the Bayless family, to see that their property has just evolved into something so wonderful. So I give it my full support.
And I would
Ready to
even
call the
add
question.
on, not only for the garden group, but, tremendous support that the Clarkston Optimist Club, who I see well represented here
Right.
this evening,
Right.
and the Clarkston Foundation have been involved. So it's, and there's more than that. I'm just, it
Right.
really has been a community love affair in terms of being able to do some great things.
Right. Exactly.
We had 2 citizens who had asked to address us on this agenda topic, so I'm going to go ahead and call them up now before we take a vote. Tom Lowry and Linda Jo White. Mr. Lowry, if you would state your name and address, please,
Yes,
and you will have
Tom.
2 minutes to address the board.
Okay, yes, Tom Lowry, 6110 Overlook in the village. I'm one of the village people. I'm also the current president of the Clarkston Optimist Club. And our motto, of course, is bringing out the best in kids. And we all agree she's been doing it. And that's all why we're here, to support Clarkston Family Farm. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Linda Jo White. This is my son Elijah, and I thank the board members for providing this time to address you regarding the Clarkston Family Farm. We were introduced to CFF last year through my son's friend, who suggested he'd make a great camp counselor at Camp Wild. She was so excited that he got so excited, so we did our research, made application, met Miss O'Brien, and the rest is history. What we thought would simply be another time to just get involved and give back has turned into a journey of purpose, potential, and quite honestly, a beautiful thing for this mom to see. Camp Wild was Elijah's first of many CFF volunteer opportunities, and not only was he mentored by creative and passionate people, but he was equipped to in turn mentor young camp attendees in the very same creative and passionate way. Ask him, and he'll tell you that along with making jam and doing crafts and the butterflies, some of his favorite experiences were just talking and combos with the littles, as well as forming bonds with the staff and the opportunity to acquire some pretty cool life skills. If you ask me, the most amazing experience came just 4 days after the devastating events that occurred on November 30th in our Oxford community. And I'm sorry, we live at 125 South Washington in Oxford, Michigan. Just 4 days after, you look at Clarkston Family Farm's Facebook page, you'll see that CFF had intentionally planned their Christmas event and set the atmosphere for all those to, and I quote, be a spark of light, celebrate life, and recharge and refuel so as to take on tomorrow with hope and optimism. That statement inspired my Elijah, my 6 foot, 5.5 inch tall, 15-year-old son who lost 2 friends that day. To put on a Santa hat, and he had a shirt that proudly declared the words, "World's Tallest Elf." He served at the event, and it did bring much needed healing to him and everyone that was there. In closing, we're a very purpose-driven family and believe that every human was born to be the answer to a question in their generation.
Thank
With
you.
that said, Elijah is committed to be a CFF volunteer for life.
Thank you very much.
And just as I had to say, we're grateful that CFF is not only a light that provides amazing education, marketed a gathering place, but ultimately
Appreciate
we
it.
believe is a place to discover and realize one's potential, their purpose, and the pursuit
Thank you,
of power.
Mrs. White. Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments. Thank you for volunteering, Elijah. Any other comments or questions from the board? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion, I can't add anybody at this point. I'm sorry. If you wanted to wait till item 9, but I feel like we're, okay, thank you very much. Sorry about that. All right, there was no one opposed to the motion. The motion carries. Congratulations, Chelsea, you're here, you're here. Okay, I'll tell you what, I realize so many of you were here simply to support that. Let me just take 30 seconds. If I understand, if you want to make your exit now, I'll pause for 30 seconds. We'd love to have you stay for the rest of our business. But if you do want to make a quick exit, I'll just sort of take a moment and pause right now. And I think there are goodies out there too, it looks like, if you want to grab something on the way, so.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
How you doing? I'll see you soon. I said I'll see you soon.
Okay, we'll continue on. Item 6.4 is approval of the school bus purchase. May I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Education approves the bid to purchase 18 new school buses from Hoekstra Transportation in the amount of $1,776 and $150.
Support.
Are there any questions or comments from the board?
Is this the continued lease buyback that we've always been doing? When
Yeah.
we say purchase, are we doing the same thing we've always done? I mean,
Yes.
I'm assuming so.
Last year you approved us to do a one-year extension.
Right. Okay.
Now the one-year extension will be up in June, so we have to come up with something. So we are asking for 18 school buses to be done in June. We'll be coming to you in June for a lease then.
So the next cycle, we need to just figure out a new plan, program, whatever.
Well, then we will, I think, have a year off, then we'll have a 3-year one that will be, we've got like 3 different leases right now
Yeah,
because of the way
right,
we
right.
did it last year. This 1-year extension now will combine with a 4-year one that we already had, and then we've got one coming up. We'll have a year off, then we should have one, I'm remembering, right? We have one coming in 2024, and there'll be a 2025, and unfortunately, yeah, we're on rotating now, so.
I just wanted clarification.
But
Right,
this
so
is
this
a
isn't our
one-year
full fleet.
extension.
Yeah, this is not the full fleet.
This
Right.
is just for the 18 that we did, or we did a 1-year extension. So now we're asking to put them into a lease,
Okay, thank you.
3-year.
Any other questions? Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Item 6.5 is approval of purchase of decodable readers. May I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Education approves the purchase of decodable readers from Benchmark Education Company and Wilson Language Training Corps in the amount of $63,544.06 as presented.
Support.
Any questions or discussion from the board? You know, Mrs. Mahoney's in the audience. Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. We'll move on to report items. Item 7.1 is our monthly financial report. Mrs. Rogers?
Okay, this will be as of March 31st, 2022. You have February and March information. It's 2 months worth of information that's given to you. And as of March 31st, 2022, we have budget to actual revenues of just under 60%. And this does have the amended budget that you approved the last month. So it's got the new numbers in it. And then your budget to actual expenditures are just about 64%. And with fund equity ending at 9.2 million, and we're trending right now with the amended budget that you approved. And then if you have any questions on any of the check registers or any of the data that was given to you for the last 2 months.
Trustees, were there any questions on any of the data provided? All right. Thank you very much. I guess you can stand right there because you're next up. Item 8, our first discussion item tonight, 8.1, is our Board of Affordability Budget Model, as we are starting the budget season.
So the Board Affordability Model starts with the next school year's budget, 2022-23. Most of our exemptions, like we're going with our typical 100 loss exception, enrollment gains, hoping for an open enrollment gain again of 43. We do know our benefit change number, and that is 3.5%. That's a known number. Retirement rate at
one
this
second.
point. Oh,
Can you make that a little bit bigger? Okay.
I'm sorry.
I don't know if anyone can see it on the, that's looking up there. Do most of you have it on the screen in front of you? Okay. I'm just thinking more for anyone in the audience. Can you guys see that at all?
I can't.
Okay.
There we go.
Better? Okay.
And the retirement rate at this point is 0%. We shouldn't be expecting increases there. And the state per pupil right now in the governor's proposal is $435 per pupil increase. We do still have some more budgeting processes to go through, as you know. We still have to get the Senate and the Senate and the House. That usually comes in April, and then they'll have the May revenue consensus in May, and then once they agree to all their numbers, the goal is that we have something by June 1st, but at this point we'll go with the governor's that we know. It's $435 per pupil. So our revenue is budgeted off that with 100 student loss. And then our expenditures has, I don't know if you want to move it up. So you'll see our 435, just around 3 million, but we do have a loss. And then we have the open enrollment revenue, that would be the 43. And then we do have a shared service and virtual academy that does profit. It's more profit-based because and we do about a 30% profit on one and about 50% on the virtual academy. So we're expecting to increase our profit margin. We're hoping that's a conservative number. And then the state and federal, we're getting, this past year we got about 6.5 million in one-time money. This year it's going to go up to 7.1 million of one-time money. So I've increased the one-time federal money, but then it's only one time, so it has to go out the next year, as you'll see. And this budget parameter over the 3 years has 6.613 million one-time money for next school year, and then 638,000 at this point for the 2023-24 of one-time money. So, and that is going to be, majority of that is called the Section 11T money. It is a portion of, we do have 1/3 of our ESSER 3 money that we postponed into 2022-23, which is just over $1 million, and then we have 6.2 million of Section 11T funding that we just got the application for, and we can start the applying process. So we'll put that into 2023. And then our ARP IDA funding was one-time money that we have in our budget this year. So you'll see an in and out of that, expenditures in and out. That might go back into the budget next year, but it'll be an in and out again. We would increase the revenue and increase expenditures. If you go down to expenditures, we have a 3.5% change, so that's about $280,000 of increase of benefits to our budget. Human resources are all the approved contracts, raises, or anything that's already been approved moving forward for next year. There's nothing in there that is not approved at this point. We do have some contracts that will be expiring at the end of next school year, but none of that's in there. This is just all known stuff that will increase our human resource line items. And then you'll see I added 2 new line items. This is called Summer School Programming 11T, After School Program 11T. Section 11T, we're getting a $6.2 million allocation, but there are a lot more restrictions. This is the most restricted COVID funding we've received at this point. And they are requiring that we spend $638,000 on summer school and $638,000 on after school. If we don't, then we don't get the money. So, we're at this point, I'm spreading that over 2 years because we can't spend $638,000 in one summer. So we're spreading that over 2 years, and it'll be up to the district to decide if we're going to implement an after-school program, and then that'll be $319 a year that we could put towards that. If you don't spend it, then you just don't get the money. But it is part of that $6.2 million. So, and then your estimated budget surplus then next year, it would be about $4.6 million with an estimated fund balance of $22 million at this point. There's a lot of expenditures that would still need to go in. They're just expenditures that haven't been approved yet, like a lot of payroll and stuff, but, and then the next year, we did a $200 increase for, next year, 2 years from now, the 2023-24 and the 2024-25 budget. You'll see we did $200 increases in the foundation allowance. We're hoping that's conservative, but we don't have any idea what the future holds. We don't even know yet what we're getting for next year, but we're doing a 200. Usually we do 100, but we're going to go with 200 because it does seem the state is doing financially a lot better than they've done over the years. Other than that, I've left pretty much everything else pretty much the same. With all those numbers put in, you're going to end up with some deficit issues because of the one-time money. If we lose all that one-time COVID money, then we're going to start having some deficit issues. So we did put in a $1.5 million planned expenditure reduction to help those. over those 2 years. So this is where we're at this point in the board affordability model, to start building the budget.
Any comments or questions from the board? I mean, we look at this regularly, right? And this is our regular cycle, so I don't think this is unfamiliar to any of us. Ms.
Yeah, I
McGinnis?
usually bring this in March and
Yeah.
or April.
Two questions, if I may. Is the 11T incur the expense first and then get reimbursed?
Yeah, yes, it is that way. Yep.
Okay.
The ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 are that. They've all been that way. Right now, I'm in the process of requesting ESSER 2 and ESSER 3. I have to monthly do a draw to the federal after we spend it. And this will be the same way.
I had a second question. You think I
Please,
can remember it?
please.
I'm just
Oh.
trying to remember it. Yeah, I can't remember what it was right this minute.
Okay.
I'll email it to Sean and you if I remember it.
Okay. All right. So we'll continue on in our cycle. I mean, this will be a topic, obviously, for the next couple of board meetings when we ultimately approve the budget then in June.
Yeah, hopefully we'll know more, obviously, each month as the state defines more of where we're going to end with the foundation allowance and stuff. But
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Rogers. We'll move on to 8.2, our facilities update. Mr. Goodman?
Good evening again.
Good evening.
I have Tom Vandegrind again here with GMB tonight. He's continues to work diligently with this master plan update, and we provided a few slides to keep us kind of on track. So I'm going to turn over to Tom to speak to the first slide and really just kind of reiterate where we've been and where we're going.
Yeah, thanks, Wes. So just to remind ourselves a little bit of history. About a little over a year ago, we started on the master plan update. You guys asked us to look at the one we did in 2016 and said, let's keep a 5-year look every 5 years. That's kind of the extent of that master plan. So let's look at it every 5 years and see where we're at. So a little over a year we've been working on this process. And it involved some building evaluations. So we did some walkthrough with some of your staff to look at things to validate if they're deteriorating at the same rate we thought they were, or different issues coming up. Went through that. And then a big component was meeting with your staff, your principals, your directors, and some of your department heads, and validating these items that are still on the master plan. Are they still valid? Are there any new items? And so you guys got an updated list, the 2021 update, and that included, and it has some identification there of items that are left over from the last time that weren't done from the 2016 plan. And then it has some new items that came up, compiled. So you have that whole list now. Of that, the next bullet there is the junior high. That was a big one. And if you all recall, in the last bond in 2016, that series, it was a big number. And it was like, wow, that's a big task to look at the junior high. So in that plan for the 2016 plan was, let's do very minor work on that building so we don't invest money that we might undo. So provide just the necessary security things to make those kids as safe as the other buildings that we did upgrades for security. And we put some money into furniture so that they could have an increased 21st century learning environment in that building, which would be something very mobile if we did an upgrade to that building. So that was something kicked down the road for the junior high. We then spent a lot of time programming that building. What would that be if we're going to do a new one with your staff, Adam and the staff? So we went through that process, developed what that building might look like. We spent a fair amount of time with AUK, your construction manager, and looked at constructability of that. This is a very complicated building. And out of that, we talked about some frugal things we could do to be responsible to that building, and we came out with saying we're going to save the auditorium and have that be part of the next plan. And we also found some pretty creative ways to save part of the building for the construction trades and renovate that. And so then it was an overlay of how do we build this thing and keep you in session? Just spent a lot of time with AUK. How do they price this? They were asking, and so we studied how to build it in phases, which is a multiple kind of a year thing. But that was important for them to understand how to estimate it. We went through that process, and then they ended up coming up with an estimate of that project, which we brought you a meeting or two ago. It was around $140 million for that junior high component. So from there, we then took that and then surveyed your community, parents and staff, kind of see how they felt about some of these things. And we got very consistent responses to the themes, and we'll go in the next slide, we'll show you some of the themes. But they were very consistent to what your directors and your principals, et cetera, had kind of laid out. So I think we can move to the next slide. The total master plan includes all those items I just described. Things left over from the 2016 master plan and new things identified in terms of, that's 5 years later, right? What are the new kinds of components? And so the total is around a $420 million projected cost, and that's a high level estimate for at least understanding all of the components of your master plan. It's very common for districts to have a master plan that's a very big number, right? It's like, well, how 420 million? Well, that's kind of scary. That's not intended to be something that you're going to tackle. That's a little bit longer term. So we're picking off the idea of what's a 5 to 10 year thing we look at, and that's the next step we're in. We'll get to some of those costs for you. So we went through that process to begin to prioritize those needs, that high priority needs, or what are the 5 year needs, maybe 5 to 10 year needs. And out of that master plan, again, from your staff, your directors, et cetera, and then reiterated and supported by community surveys, et cetera, were these basically 4 things. Safety and security was a big one, and it's continuing the work we've already done. A lot of cool things people are acknowledging that were done to make the buildings feel safe, but just continued kind of development of additional things that make the buildings a little more safe. Supplementing that to the things we'd already done. And a big part of it was identified as that AC, some air conditioning for the buildings, and improved air quality would be an important part that they'd like to see. The one we talked about earlier was the junior high and replacing that. 65-year-old plus minus building, very small, tight. It's got a lot of infrastructure issues, and it does not have any of the 21st century kind of spaces for education, for some of the cool things you're hearing that your staff is doing even tonight that we heard about. And then the third component is aging building systems, refers to the things that just have a useful life of so long. Roofs, doors, mechanical systems, fire alarms, those things only last so long, like any of them do in our own home. And we're tracking those as to what are the next 5 year needs. And so that's going to be this first high priority component. And then sustaining technology component as well in the classroom. That came out, and we worked with AUK for that. So since we met with you last time, they also looked at, beyond the junior high, these other high priority needs, what do they cost? We had some ideas from our initial master plan. They went through and verified them. We talked to them about details back and forth of how does this get done. So that estimate has come out at around $190 million for these high priority needs, which we did our first round of prioritization to. I think the next is maybe to talk about some funding that we looked at.
Yes, so obviously these numbers are big and not really supported by the general fund. So the next option is the bond, to go to a bond. So we've worked with Mary Beth, and our bond council of PFM has ran some values, and our goal to him was, we don't want a new tax increase. It would be a zero tax increase. What kind of funding could we come up with? He's projecting, and I say projecting because they're looking at the latest interest rate increases to what the property tax values will be, and just different scenarios, how long we would take the money for. And so part of that is working with them as well as working with AUK on what can you really do if we were to pass this. What can you do in a given year? How many years will this take? And that kind of helps decide the best funding. So between all of us, we're constantly working on asking them questions, and they're feeding information back. And so they're projecting around 175 to 190 million that we could stay at a zero increase that would allow us to do the projects and what we shared in the slides forward, sorry. So within that, we are going to continue, now that we have solid numbers on those other areas, we have a solid number from AUK on the cost of a new junior high. So the rest of the numbers were all those other pieces we talked about. So now we got to see how we can fit that in, and and really just going back through there to make sure that our crystal ball looks the best, because our goal is that we put anything that we do is going to help us and guide the general fund to be used for what it's supposed to be, for learning and students. And so roofing and parking lot, we don't have enough here to cover everything, but we have what are our priorities, which areas. So we have assessments that we've done on all our roofs. We have assessments we've done on all our paving and concrete, and our mechanical system. So we have a pretty good, Bible of different things within the buildings, and we know, from the elevators to the wells to the boilers when they need to be replaced. So now we're just fine tuning that. Did we miss anything? Are there things that we should consider that we haven't considered? So with your help, and you saw we've shared the master plan, and then we're just continue. The more we look at it, the more we find. So that's where we're at. I think the key themes are still there within the master plan of critical needs that we call them, and then I guess just our next steps of what you would like to see from us, and basically us fine-tuning what's in that plan to bring back to you to say, okay, this is a funding we could go for, and this is the projects that would be in that plan.
Okay. Well, thank you. I mean, we'd certainly, every month we've asked you to continue to work the plan and to take another step in fine-tuning that list and bringing that back to us and asking us to review it. And so certainly that's what we all spent the weekend doing, was looking at what was designated kind of those high priority needs. And I know all the trustees spent some time reflecting on that. And so I think maybe it's just time for a little bit of discussion and reflection then. Mr. Heyer and Mrs. Egan have served as the board liaisons to what has been sort of the facilities planning committee, the bond committee, since 2015. And so maybe I could ask you to kick off our discussion then tonight as, kind of the senior ranking, I guess, trustee who has been so closely connected to this process, and we'll let everyone else weigh in.
Well, I'll first compliment our architects. I was on the committee that hired them, along with Dr. Ryan and Ms. Rogers. We went through a process where I think about 6.5 years ago, where we went out and decided, let's just, before we update the master plan, let's just hear from some competitive architectural firms and see what we need. And I'm still blown away every time that we have a meeting with GMB and our project managers from AUK. They've just done a tremendous job, I think, getting us through this last phase and doing an exhaustive inventory of our facilities. And so that's why that spreadsheet that we saw is just tremendously large. And there is even more detail behind that spreadsheet if we wanted to just find out the model numbers and the age and the warranties on everything that we have here in our district. So it has been a tremendous process. Updating what we need, for our future and re-looking at this plan. I just appreciate the due diligence that this team has brought forward. I have a high degree of confidence in terms of the list and what we need to do. And just a reminder to everyone that we intentionally left the junior high off to the side at that last bond issuance simply because we just could not afford it. And as we see what's going on in terms of interest rates, it does seem like we have some opportunity here to really provide a good, sound junior high for all our students in our community. And I think tonight when we saw this presentation on the family farm and how well we are managing our facilities, I think we can move forward with some confidence on this master plan. So I appreciate the process, just to say the least. I think we've been very responsible and conservative in our financial outlook. And I I guess, incorporating the survey responses from the community and keeping in touch with our community members is really important. But I would just say I have a lot of confidence in where we're going with this. I'm very optimistic, and I think, the timing is good with interest rates such as they are, to be looking at, are we going to really finally address the junior high?
Okay. Mr. Need?
Thank you, President Horst. Thanks, Wes and Tom. It's an excellent document, and I know you guys have worked very hard, along with our bond committee, Elizabeth and Steve. I think, and they're all critical needs. You can't get around that. The junior high, I think, has to be replaced. We can't get around that. So the question is, how do we pay for it? And as Wes alluded to, the general fund obviously can't support that. So if we are going to go to a bond issue, I guess the critical point for me to support that would be it has to be a no tax rate increase. And that, I think most of us, if not all of us, share that as well. If it can't be done, then I guess those critical needs, you have to take the pencil and the eraser and see what we can do to get it down to whatever number our financial advisors and Mrs. Rogers and our bond advisors come up with. So those are my comments. I support the plan. I think these are all critical needs, but that would be my one condition as to going forward.
Okay, thank you. Anything on this side?
I have a couple thoughts, something that I wish I would have thought of before the meeting so that somebody could have come with the information. So one of the thoughts is as much as I agree, I would prefer most certainly to have a no tax rate increase bond. I see the dollars needed. And I see the difficulty that Wes and his team and our architects are going to have going through to try to decide what priority stays and what priority goes. A priority is a priority. I wonder, and hopefully Mary Beth, you can help me through this conversation or this thought that I have, and that is that I believe we've been paying down a good substantial amount of our school bond revolving funds. And so while we cannot indebt ourselves greater than 7 mils at any time, we can go into the school bond revolving fund for that is greater than the 7 mils. And so I'm curious, as an option, to know what the depth of that funding opportunity could be, even though it could result in an increase in the ask of a tax rate, but the money would be supported through the school bond loan fund, and we'd still be only leveraging the 7 mils. Am I correct? You have to ask RJ. Okay, so I'm just saying that I think I'd like to have an understanding of where that could put us. Could we ultimately get another 200,000, or what could we get, or I should say maybe another couple million out of it, to better understand where we sit in our repayment of the school bond loan revolving fund and what capacity we may have to be able to get part of what the maximum capacity is into it. I hope everybody understands what I'm trying to say.
I get what you're saying.
Because I'm not. And I'm sure it's in some of the documents before. I guess I would just like it in front of my face when we're kind of having this conversation. Because we know right now that at the current levels, we have anywhere between, I think it's at 170, 190. Okay, so we know that number now. So I'm just looking to understand what is the other numbers that are part of the full equation. Okay, that's all I'm asking for.
Yep.
Of course, again, it would be everybody's in our best desire, our first desire to have a no tax increase. Just looking at the price of the junior high is in excess, greatly in excess of what we can bring forth with a no zero increase. So I just like to have a little bit more options on the table to have this conversation a little bit broader. I understand the concerns that we as a board and the administration will have should we try to kick this can down the road again, and that is the maintenance of very old equipment and needing to potentially drill into cement floors to fix plumbing that may find itself leaking, and the cost to that can be quite substantial also. So the cost is maintain the situation that we have at the junior high is just as good a money as building a new building or raising the building in portions and building a new building. So I feel that we need to be very mindful of we need to have every option there is on the table so that we can make the choices based on all the parameters and the potential costs of maintaining the building and or any of the other needs on this list out of the general fund and the impact that those will have on us also. So I'd personally like a little bit more options on the table or at least some more data to understand better how we can go about what our needs are here, because it is quite substantial. We've done a very good job being good stewards of the money the community has already given us over the years, and I'm positive that we can continue to be good stewards of that money. I just would like to see a little bit more data on the funding options.
Right, and I think that would probably be the next charge then is really more detail on the financial picture. I mean, there's a lot more detail in terms of, let's do a
Yes.
bond.
Yep. Yeah, we wanted to make sure, we're definitely, I talked to RJ today. Our plan is after this meeting to see how things are going, that we will bring our group together with RJ and Mary Beth at the table. And then when we come back in May for a meeting, I plan to have RJ here to speak to those options. So you can really, he can get into the weeds, but he knows his information very well. So he's already been prepped for that, and we can share as we get this information.
Sure.
And we want to do due diligence to go back to the community if this is to exercise one of these options to get their impressions on it. And I think we got to be very careful not to be tone deaf and be very not only aware of what our community has in terms of needs and wants for their school district, but also in terms of what their willingness and interest to support and how we go about it. And I think we've always been rewarded when we take that time at each step to ask our community, because they'll tell us. And it's not just simply our school community, and I think we need to kind of exercise our ability to utilize our local press and other means to get out to the broader community that doesn't even have kids in school. We need to hear back from them as well. Looking at our community, I'm always very probably live within Clarkston and looking at, what reflects our neighborhoods, our schools, and I think it's been a self-fulfilling between the schools, the community back and forth, as we heard earlier in this meeting tonight, that growing together over time, and it doesn't happen one without the other. So I definitely want to say I hear you, Cheryl, in terms of that, working with the team on options. And there's some variability. There's definitely some opportunity right now in the overall world economically, but traditionally, looking at our community, I think we share a lot of the conservative financial values when it comes to fiduciary responsibility, not to mention people and homeowners and individuals across our town are facing inflation and everything else. We just got to, it's not a good time in my mind at a face value to look at anything that would increase taxes. I fundamentally, as a conservative view of this community and looking at opportunities, but I think exploring options is never a bad thing.
Exactly.
So I'll definitely get you that information to the team.
That's not my first choice either, is to increase our taxes. I just want to be able to have all the data on the table to make the decision, to be able to justify for the things that don't get to be put on the list as to why we couldn't afford them.
Understand.
Or why our choice was not to put those forward into the bond itself, of the potential bond.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's helpful. And I forgot to mention on the last slide, and not to miss Kelly over here, but we do have a survey ready to go tomorrow morning, and that will be live. If you have any questions to that, she's here as well. But the community survey and going to the newspaper, for people that don't have kids in the school, to make sure that they see it, and if they don't have technologies, there's other ways for them to fill that survey out.
Mrs. Horst, 2 points I just want to add in here, that I'm very grateful that you just said that, because We need that input, I think, for our next
Absolutely.
discussion. Absolutely. We need to hear what the community thinks about the junior high, which has been, most of the focus on our discussions around the next step in the master plan. But I think Mrs. McGinnis makes a really interesting point about the school bond loan fund. And I'm probably working from maybe an old paradigm. It seems to me that there was one time that the school bond loan fund was going to be fully retired by, I think, 2035, something like that. And that we had to be totally paid out of it at some point in time. Now, I don't know how relevant that is since the state is now running, a surplus. And we are getting these foundation increases, which is great, but that's for operational. It's not for capital needs. And I don't know where the state is in terms of addressing capital needs, because there's been some talk too about how are we going to address some of these aging facilities across the state. But, at one time we even talked about sinking fund, which could potentially address some of the things that, like a section of roof on one of the buildings that maybe we put off. It doesn't have to be in this bond. There are many options. I'm a little hesitant to go into the school bond loan fund if we can avoid it, only because I don't know if the interest rate is optimal compared to bond. I don't know, but I think that's I would like to know that, because if the interest rate would be higher paying back the state, then to me, I think the timing is good because of the interest rates. Right, out in the marketplace.
So I think specifically, let's have Mr. Naughton address that for us. Not only what would just sort of a traditional kind of bond look like if we just went to our community the way we've done in the past, but is there an option then through the school bond loan fund? Just maybe dive into some more detail about that, just so we can explore all of those options.
Just in general, I'll even have Wes and Ms. Rogers sound off on it as well. Usually, I believe the qualified bond, the school bond fund is probably always going to be your lowest subsidized interest rate.
Okay.
The state is putting on off on it, but that's just to kind of confirm it if you have any questions. I think
Right.
I think one step at a time.
And
Yeah.
some different parameters, though, I believe, with the
If
different,
we
the
address it up
qualified and the
front, then we
non-qualified.
put the questions,
Right.
it's answered and it's there. But I just cannot remember if there was a retirement or a sunset date on that was established when the state was working at a deficit. Do you remember that, Mrs. McGinnis?
Yeah. They were, and it was also a different leadership team in Lansing that was trying to get out of the business of loaning to school districts
Right.
the money
Right.
to subsidize the needs of the community, because
Right.
not everybody has SEV level that will pay for these kinds of buildings at one time. To that point, I would also like to see what a phased build of Clarkson Junior looks like. And so I'm just going to say, so facetiously, if we can only get 190 million, and what are we going to get out of 190 million that's on the high priority list and to Clarkson Junior? And then how many years down the road do we still have to wait to do phase 2 rebuild of Clarkson Junior, and what will that potentially cost? Because it sounds to me, if I'm understanding this, that the phased rebuild of Clarkson Junior is going to have to be multiple bond campaigns.
No,
No.
I'll adjust that. That would not be, because there's no way we would go out on a limb to say we couldn't complete it. So we would, go ahead, Mr. Bibb.
Yeah, sorry. So the junior high in this, I don't know if we can back up the slide, Heidi, but the 100, right here, the estimated 190 million, that includes the entire junior high, as well as those other themes. AC for the elementaries and secondary schools that don't have it, safety and security items, as well as miscellaneous things in that aging building systems based on our priorities. Those roofing, parking lot, boilers, those type of things. And then technology has money in there. So that's all within that 190.
Perfect. Thank you for clarifying that.
We're told that we can get at the zero anywhere from 175 to 190. So we definitely can do the whole entire junior high in this one bond. It's just what else can we do? If we get 190, then we can do everything we've got here. If we get 175, then we're going to have to cut some things back.
Right.
We certainly can't do all 420 million. That's the whole entire. So we've, there's things that people have asked for that are going to have to go on to the next bond. But that junior high would be in this bond, incomplete,
Thank you.
completely built.
All right, so it's on consensus across the board, no tax rate increase. Comfortable at that range then? I mean, if that's the range that keeps us within that, that's the range I think we're all comfortable working with. These 4 categories are the categories that the community, that, came out of the community survey. I think now we've seen this a couple of times. I think we're comfortable staying within those categories, knowing that the junior high all at once is really kind of the centerpiece of it, and it's got to happen. And then there are some other really high priority items within those other categories that we feel have to happen as well. And I know you'd asked us to look at it, and were there any reactions in terms of what can come off? And I don't know that any of us had any sort of non-starters in that list. And I think we would really rely on, as that number gets fine-tuned, we would rely a lot on what the administration comes back to us and with our partners with AUK and GMB and says, this is really the low-hanging fruit, given the numbers as they continue to be refined. So I think really that's kind of the consensus from the table here, and Mr. Heyer agrees. That was the pre-note that I got, is he's comfortable with how the process has evolved here and supports the high priority list and continuing to refine the plan.
Thank you very much. So we will be back next month with RJ and then a complete plan.
So we'll have a much more in-depth financial discussion than in May, and
Great.
see where the board's comfort level lies. Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you very much. Item 9 is citizens' comments. Citizens are welcome to address the board on any topic at this point on the agenda. I had one citizen from my initial sheet. Mrs. McLean, can we see if any additional, or Mrs. Mahoney? Oh, thank you so much. Any additional citizens had signed up? Mrs. Giampetroni, you were first up.
Hi, good evening. My name is Christy Giampetroni. I'm 15 Walden Road, and I brought with me today a printout from the Michigan Association of Superintendents and Administrators. It's from their website, and it announces the need for all superintendents and administrators to be trained as social justice leaders. This is very concerning for me as a parent, because we all know, because of the pandemic, that our kids are about 2 years behind in learning. And I believe it would be more important to spend our precious time and our resources on academics. Recently, there was a situation in one of our classes where social justice took precedence over academic learning. And this distraction set our kids back. The class, including my child, was not able to take the final exam because they were not prepared. And this created a lot of stress for her and anxiety for the kids. But thankfully, the principal and the teachers did an amazing job stepping up and kind of getting the kids back on track and really working hard to get them back on track and learning. So academics to me is really top priority, and I know it is for you as well in our schools, but restoring our kids to academic excellence and success is a goal, and it's really important to me. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much for your comments tonight. Now, the other folks who signed up had wanted to speak on the Clarkston Family Farm, and I don't think anyone else is here. So let me just check these names: Amy Vine, Chuck Edwards, and David Murphy. Okay, I thought so. We'll move on to information items. Our next Board of Education meeting is Monday, May 9th. We will have at 6:30 our public hearing on our 2022 tax rate, followed by our regular meeting at 7 p.m. Item 11 is adjournment. May I have a motion, please?
I move to adjourn.
Support.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries, and we are adjourned. Thank you for coming tonight.